Recording.
So welcome, ALPFA members. This is Jose Ruiz. I'm the Vice President of Professional Development for ALPFA in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you're watching this now, then you would have already registered for the Student Symposium that we're hosting on March 25th in Charlotte. So looking forward to working with you and getting you ready for that event, and working with you even after the event to make sure that you're successful and that you can start your careers off on the right foot. So what I'm going to go through, what I'm going to go over today briefly is just a sample of what we're going to cover on the longer webinar. It's going to be a live webinar right before the event, and we are going to work with you to make sure that you're prepared by actually helping you update your resumes in such a way that it's going to be more efficient, not just for the recruiters at the event, but also just in general for companies that are recruiting, looking for candidates like yourselves. So what I do outside of my work with ALPFA, I'm actually a full-time financial, banking, and technical recruiter for Aerotech, which is part of Allegiance Group, which is the largest privately held recruiting firm in the country. So my 9-to-5 is recruiting for primarily Wells Fargo, Bank of America here in Charlotte, all lines of business, all different kinds of roles, a lot of the same roles that you might be interested in. And with my role with ALPFA is to be the intermediary between the membership, the professional membership, and also the sponsors, the companies that partner with ALPFA. Specifically, I relate more with the talent acquisition teams at these different companies. So, for example, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're looking for candidates like yourself. I'm the middle person between you and them. And what I hope to be able to accomplish in this role with you is to help you actually win those jobs and help you connect with the people that are actually looking for you right now and looking to hire you for these positions to start a career off. So some of the things that this is a slideshow from a presentation that I did, one of two presentations that I did for PMI, the Project Management Institute. So we'll just take some bits and pieces, and then I'm going to go and show you what it looks like when a recruiter is trying to find someone like you and what some of the pitfalls are and things for you to look out for. But like I said, we're going to work with more closely once you attend that webinar. I believe it's going to be on March 4th that we have scheduled. So basically, the main thing that you need to understand, and the problem, we're going to talk about what problem you're trying to solve. The main problem that you're going to have as an entry-level candidate looking for your first job out of college is that you're basically, if you make yourself difficult to find by the recruiters in the HR departments that are trying to find you, then you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. So I know this firsthand because I recruit for entry-level candidates for the banks. So the main problem you're trying to solve is avoiding pitfalls. Some of these issues, you're not necessarily going to experience just yet, but the main things that you might encounter as an entry-level candidate is not getting enough calls, not getting calls back for the kind of jobs that you're applying to. Maybe you do get calls, but you don't get submitted, or you don't get interviews with the hiring companies or hiring managers, or if you do get interviews and those interviews do not turn into job offers. So those are the three main things. And also, I guess, being called about roles that you're not interested in. The overqualified, underqualified, that's not going to apply to you just yet because you haven't been out there long enough. But that's another pitfall that people fall into. So I'm going to focus on the first four, which is you not getting enough calls, or getting calls for the positions that are not the best fit for you, or that you're not the best fit for, and basically not going through the hiring process efficiently. So what advice have you gotten? Some of the things that I've heard include some of these, right? So keeping your skills in a separate summary section, keeping your resume short, keeping it vague, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest myth out there right now, and this is the main thing I want you to get out of this webinar, is that you do not need to keep your resume short. That is just bad advice. So, you know, it will take me a longer time to explain to you why that's not good advice. That's what we're going to cover during the webinar on March 4th. But bottom line is this: your resume is not a paper document anymore. It's not getting printed. People are not reading it from top to bottom. Recruiters like myself are basically using it as almost like a web page to find candidates that have specific skills and experience for the positions that they're trying to fill. So I'm going to show you an example of that shortly. But yeah, that's the biggest myth. If anybody's telling you that you need to keep it short, then obviously they don't recruit for the positions that you're looking for, because that's just not true. So whose advice do you take? I always use an example of or analogy. You know, if you're going to go buy steak to cook dinner, who are you going to buy it from? Are you going to buy it from a veterinarian who knows a cow's anatomy, or are you going to go buy it from a butcher? Most people instinctively would answer with, I would go to the butcher, of course, right? Why is that? Basically, the butcher is his or her job, his or her livelihood actually depends on you being happy with the cut of meat that he gives you. That's just not the veterinarian's job. Also, the butcher has practical experience doing this, you know, cutting meat, but more importantly, you know, he or she is dependent on the clientele because that's how they make their living. As a recruiter, I'm the butcher. My job is to, hold on, I keep switching by mistake. My job is to find candidates that are difficult to find, make sure that you match up to the positions that we have, meaning we're taking the requirements from the hiring managers for positions that are open right now in different lines of business within the banks, for example, and we're trying to make that match and then make sure that I place you. So bottom line is, if I don't find you and I don't make sure that you get the interview and you get the job offer, I don't get paid. I don't get my commission. Most recruiters make salary plus commission, and you know, that's why if I have a good candidate, but that candidate cannot land the interview or can't interview well enough to get the job offer, then I don't make any money either. Someone who's getting a salary to be a counselor or a career counselor or anything like that, unless their job depends on you getting a job, I would not take advice from that person. So that's just my personal opinion, and we'll go more in detail into that again on March 4th. So what I'd like to discuss with you for the short version of the webinar is the job search process from a from an overview of the job search process, how it actually works and how most people think it works, and the difference between them, and then some things about the resume, some myths, and how recruiters actually find you. I can't get into everything because we don't have enough time right now, but we will down the road. So basically, here's what most people assume is that you're going to get called, right? So you have your resume out there, you apply, you send it to different places. You just assume that once I get a call, because I have the experience or because I meet the requirements, in your own opinion, you just assume that you're going to get submitted to the role and that you're going to get the interview. So what people believe is that once you get to the interview, that's where you'll be able to explain in detail all the things that you know, all the experience that you have, and if you do a good job at that point, then you'll get the job offer. Actually, the way it really works is before you get that call, someone has to find you. We call it sourcing. So a recruiter, an HR person, even if you applied for a position and the corporate recruiter is the first person to see your resume, they have to determine whether or not they're going to move you to the next step of the process, which, believe it or not, the first step is, should I call this person? If you go through that, so from this point on, once you get that initial call or call back from an application, that's when they're going to decide whether or not to submit you. If you do get submitted, it's not necessarily going to turn into an interview, but if it does turn into an interview, it's not necessarily going to turn into a job offer. So I'll go over how to interview on March 4th. So some of the things that recruiters look for, Again, when they're making these different decisions, if they find you, which is a big if, they're looking at, whether or not they call you is based on personal biases, assumptions, whether you have relevant experience. In your case, as entry-level candidates, it's more, do you have the relevant background, the knowledge from your studies? Again, job tenure is not that important because you're entry-level, but if you have internships, for example, that are relevant to your career, then yes, it is important. If you worked at McDonald's or Burger King or a retail store to pay for your books and meals, then no, it's not relevant. You don't need to have it on your resume. So those are the main things. And then, again, once you start the interview process, which is from that point on, you're interviewing until you get the job offer, most recruiters and hiring managers are going to they're looking for the same thing. Can you do the job? Do you want to do the job? Is this a good fit for you? The pay, the commute, the kind of work you'll be doing, et cetera, the kind of company you'll be working with. Is this what you really want to do? Would you be committed to the role if you got the offer? And are you a good fit for the company? Are you a good culture fit? Again, that's determined mostly when you interview face-to-face. If you do everything right, then by the time you get to the face-to-face interview, they already kind of know you can do the job. They just want to lay eyes on you and make sure that, you would be that you represent the company well, and that you really want to do this. So I already covered I mentioned some of the biggest myths. Resumes need to be 1-2 page long. It's not true. Skills should be on a separate section. That's not true either. Resumes need to be general so that people get curious and give you a call and ask you 100 questions. That's not true either. That's a myth. PDFs are not better than Microsoft Word documents. Actually, PDFs make you invisible in most applicant tracking systems. And also, when you upload a PDF, it destroys the formatting, and it's just not good. It's not good to use. Most people think that if you have a good enough resume, you'll get a job. That's not true. You have to interview to get the job. What a good resume will do is get you a lot of calls for that job that you really are interested in. Recruiters and hiring managers do not read resumes from start to finish. We just don't do it. We don't have the time. It literally takes us about 10 to 15 seconds to determine whether or not we should call you once we find you. Formatting does not matter. In fact, simple formatting is best. That's another myth. If you take a resume and you highlight the whole thing, copy and paste it, and then convert it to text, that's what your resume is most likely going to look at in most applicant tracking systems. So if the formatting gets thrown off, then you need to change the formatting. Simpler is always better. And cover letters, recruiters don't care about cover letters. At least in my experience, I don't read them. I don't know anybody who does. If there's something that you didn't put in the resume that you have experience with that's relevant to that position, then you need to include it in the resume before you send it in for the job. Okay, so this is some other stuff that I'm going to get into on the longer webinar, but let me just give you a sample of what it looks like when a recruiter is trying to find you and why some of this stuff is really important. All right, so, okay. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to use something that most people are familiar with, Excel. So most candidates, especially if you've done accounting or you've done finance or any of those technical or financial majors, for the most part, you will have taken at least 1 or 2 classes that included some advanced functions of Excel. So some of you might understand this, and this is just an example. I mean, there's 100 different things that I can use as an example, but this is the main one. So this is our database, the company that I work for. This is our database. When I'm recruiting for positions in Charlotte, I'm going to do a quick search so you see what it looks like on my end. So within a 30-mile radius of Charlotte, if I were to do a search for the word Excel in the resumes that we have just here in Charlotte, and this is not Career Builder, this is not Indeed, this is just my company's internal database. How many resumes do you think will come up in that search? How many profiles? I've heard all kinds of, just take a wild guess. I'm going to show you what the actual number is right now. 68,496 is the actual number. I cannot call 68,496 people in a day, in a week, probably in a year. And the fact is, recruiters have very little time to identify the right candidates when they have an opening. So I need to get this number down to a manageable amount of time of calls that I can make in a day or two, which is more like 50 to 100. And with the unemployment rate the way it is now, they say it's 5%. I know it's actually higher than that, but if you assume that it's accurate, 5% of 100 is 5 people that are looking for work. So if I have one opening, 2 openings, and I call 100 people that have the actual keywords that I'm looking for, that have the experience that the hiring manager is looking for, I will probably find 2 to 3 people in a day. The question is, are you going to be one of those people that's going to get that call? So Excel, never going to do a search for Excel. If you look at your own resume, you might have, or you might have been told to put something like proficient in Excel. I'm proficient in Excel. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know, because I'm not psychic. I don't understand what proficient in Excel means. But let's say how many people have that on their resume in Charlotte. Proficient in Excel, 372. That's still a lot of people. If you look here on this side, out of those 372, my company has spoken with or has some kind of interaction with 317. So we have information on most of these folks. Out of that number, about 10% we've placed here in Charlotte or somewhere else. 32 of them are foremans. I can call those people first. If the job is paying 18 an hour, I can go here because we kind of know what they're looking for. This is desired hourly rate, so I know there's 27 people looking for between $15 and $20 an hour, and there's 26 people looking for less money than that. So if I can pay 18, then I can pay 15. So that already gives me about 50 to 60 people to call. If you haven't worked with us or we haven't spoken with you, and you know this doesn't help. Proficient Excel, you're one of 372. So here's where most people's jaws drop. So the manager says, I need somebody who has an accounting degree, a bachelor's in accounting. So let's do a search for bachelor near accounting. And I'll do this in parts so you can see what the numbers actually look like. How many people in Charlotte have a bachelor's in accounting? Search. 2,431. All right, well, I need a bachelor's in accounting. This is an entry-level position, so I'm looking for somebody who's graduated, who just got their bachelor's within the last year. How many people do we have in Charlotte that graduated in the year 2016? 35. That's my call. That's who I'm calling first. Okay, so, or if I take a different approach, going back to the Excel example, manager says, well, I need somebody who we're willing to train. Doesn't matter if they have a bachelor's in accounting, in business, in finance. We just want people who can, we want entry-level candidates that can do pivot tables on Excel. They need to know pivot tables, and they need to know VLOOKUPs. So these are functions of Excel. So the VLOOKUP, some people write it V-lookup, which is incorrect, but I'm going to look for that because I know some people do that. I've actually placed people because I purposely misspelled the name of a software that we were looking for. And sure enough, the one person that misspelled it was the one that I placed. And they couldn't get a call in 2 months, and they couldn't figure out why. So pivot and VLOOKUP or V-lookup. How many people in Charlotte have that on their resume? So remember the initial number, 68,000. We brought it down to 2,400, I believe, for bachelor's in accounting. It was 372 for proficient in Excel. So how many people have the word pivot and VLOOKUP on the resume in my system? Oh, quite a few. 1,348. Great. And what are they going to be doing with VLOOKUPs? They're going to be doing reconciliation. They're going to be reconciling accounts. So reconciliation, that means if you've done reconciling general ledger, journal entries, things like that, If you've done any kind of inventory management, anything like supply chain related, you will probably have some experience with VLOOKUPs doing reconciliations. And again, this is not coming, I'm not making this up, this is coming directly from the hiring manager who's telling us, I need somebody who can do pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, and they need to have experience with reconciliations. Now here's where the trifecta here, somebody who's really good in Excel will know pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, and they'll know one more thing, which is called dashboard. Dashboards on Excel. 230. So good number. I can call 42 of them, former employees. And the vast majority of these folks, I want you to take a look at this real quick. Between about 53 of them are making more than $35 an hour. 48 of them are making over $50 an hour. These are the folks that are doing data analyst jobs, reporting analysts, business analysts, financial analysts, forecasting. I mean, this guy's this person is looks like a entry-level candidate. We just talked to them October. So this is what recruiters know. This is what recruiters see that most people just don't understand. What I'm going to show you before the symposium is I'm going to show you how to make your resume search engine optimized for recruiters who recruit for the kind of positions that you're qualified for and that you are interested in. So again, I'm very excited to show you what I know, get you prepared. The event is going to be a great event. We have a lot of companies interested in meeting you. And one thing that I'm definitely going to try to make sure is that you leave there with a job, or at least you have a resume and you know how to interview, and you have a good resume that will not just catch recruiters' eyes, but actually get you found for the positions that they're trying to fill. So thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you. If you have any questions, you have my contact information. Sign up, talk to your student chapter president, and make sure you get here on March 25th. But also sign up for the webinar on March 4th, because if you think this was eye-opening, you're in for a real treat on that day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose. That was Jose Ruiz in Charlotte. Register for the webinar on March 4th, and make sure you register for and attend the Southeast Regional Collegiate Symposium. You don't want to miss it.